Did you know that sitting right there in your pocket change could be a coin that collectors are desperately hunting for and willing to pay serious money to acquire? Welcome back, fellow collectors and coin enthusiasts, to another treasure-filled episode where today we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating and underappreciated pieces of American numismatic history that could turn ordinary pocket change into hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on what you discover in your collection. Today we're exploring the incredible world of the 1974 quarter dollar, a coin that represents a pivotal moment in American minting history, and one that savvy collectors are actively seeking with passion and substantial financial backing. This video is packed with real market value insights, professional grading secrets, and collector favorites that will transform how you look at these seemingly common coins forever. Let's uncover the treasure hiding in your change jar and discover why the 1974 quarter dollar deserves serious attention from anyone interested in building wealth through coin collecting. The 1974 quarter dollar represents a fascinating chapter in American coinage history that many collectors overlook. Yet it stands as a testament to the evolution of United States currency during one of the most transformative periods in modern numismatics. This remarkable coin emerged during a decade when America was still adjusting to the monumental changes implemented by the Coinage Act of 1965, which had permanently altered the composition of circulating quarters from 90% silver to the copper-nickel clad composition that we see today. The Washington Quarter Series, originally designed by John Flanagan in 1932 to commemorate the bicentennial of George Washington's birth, had by 1974 established itself as one of the most recognizable and widely collected coin series in American history. The year 1974 specifically holds unique significance because it represents the 9th year of production using the new copper-nickel clad technology, a period when the United States Mint had finally perfected the striking and production processes for these challenging bimetallic coins. During this era, the country was experiencing significant economic turbulence, including the aftermath of the 1973 oil crisis, rising inflation, and widespread economic uncertainty that would define much of the 1970s decade. The Nixon administration had recently ended the gold standard completely in 1971, and by 1974, Americans were becoming increasingly aware of the relationship between precious metals and monetary policy, making coins like the 1974 quarter dollar particularly relevant to collectors who understood the historical significance of these post-silver era pieces. The United States Mint facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco were operating at full capacity during 1974, producing millions of quarters to meet the demanding needs of commerce. Throughout the nation, Philadelphia, as the primary production facility, struck quarters without mint marks following the traditional practice established for the mother mint, while Denver added the distinctive D mint mark and San Francisco contributed proof specimens marked with the S designation for collectors and special sets. The minting technology of 1974 had evolved considerably from the early copper-nickel clad production years, with improved die steel, enhanced striking pressures, and refined quality control processes that resulted in quarters with superior detail, definition, and longer die life than had been achieved in the immediate post-1965 transition period. The economic context surrounding 1974 makes these quarters particularly interesting from a historical perspective, as they were produced during a year when President Gerald Ford assumed office, following Nixon's resignation when the Vietnam War was drawing to its conclusion, and when American society was grappling with fundamental questions about currency, value, and economic stability. The copper-nickel clad composition of the 1974 quarter dollar, consisting of a pure copper core sandwiched between layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel, represented the culmination of metallurgical innovations that had been refined throughout the late 1960s and early 1970s. This composition provided the durability and appearance characteristics necessary for circulating coinage while eliminating the silver content that had made previous quarters valuable beyond their face value. The total weight of 5.67 grams and diameter of 24.3 millimeters remained consistent with historical quarter specifications, ensuring compatibility with existing vending machines, parking meters, and other mechanical devices that relied on precise coin dimensions for proper operation. The edge reading of 119 ridges continued the security tradition established to prevent counterfeiting and edge filing, while also providing the tactile recognition that had made quarters instantly identifiable by touch alone. The 1974 production year occurred during a period when numismatic collecting was experiencing unprecedented growth, with collectors increasingly recognizing that modern coins could possess significant value based on condition, errors, and scarcity, factors that had nothing to do with precious metal content. Professional grading services were beginning to establish standardized evaluation criteria that would eventually revolutionize the coin collecting industry, and forward-thinking collectors were already beginning to save high-quality examples of contemporary coins like the 1974 quarter dollar in anticipation of future demand. The historical significance of 1974 extends beyond monetary policy to encompass major cultural and political events that provide context for understanding why coins from this year possess special appeal to collectors who appreciate the intersection of history and numismatics. The artistic brilliance and symbolic depth of the 1974 quarter dollar's design elements reflect decades of refinement in American coinage aesthetics, creating a masterpiece of numismatic art that collectors continue to appreciate nearly 50 years after its initial production. The obverse design, featuring the iconic profile of George Washington, represents one of the most enduring and recognizable portraits in the history of world coinage. Originally created by John Flanagan and based on the famous sculpture by French artist Jean-Antoine Houdon, Washington's portrait on the 1974 quarter dollar showcases remarkable attention to detail, with the president's classical profile displaying dignified features that include the characteristic powdered hair tied in a queue, the strong jawline, and the determined expression that has symbolized American leadership and democratic ideals for generations of citizens. The word liberty arcs gracefully along the left edge of the coin, with each letter precisely spaced and deeply infused to ensure clarity and durability through years of circulation, while the national motto "In God We Trust" appears in smaller, but equally clear lettering positioned strategically below Washington's neck area. The date 1974 is prominently displayed at the bottom of the obverse design, struck with the same attention to detail and clarity that characterizes the entire design composition, ensuring that even heavily circulated examples retain readable date information that is essential for accurate identification and valuation. The reverse design of the 1974 quarter dollar presents the heraldic eagle that has served as America's national symbol since the founding of the Republic, rendered with extraordinary attention to heraldic accuracy and artistic excellence that reflects the highest standards of 20th century coin design. The eagle is depicted with outstretched wings that span nearly the entire diameter of the coin, with individual feather details meticulously crafted to create a sense of power and majesty that befits America's national bird. The eagle's talons firmly grasp a bundle of 13 arrows in the left claw and an olive branch with 13 leaves in the right claw, symbolizing the dual American capacity for both war and peace, strength and diplomacy that has defined the nation's approach to international relations throughout its history. Above the eagle's head, 13 stars are arranged in an arc pattern, each star precisely formed with sharp points and defined edges that create a celestial canopy, representing the original 13 colonies that formed the foundation of the United States of America. The inscriptions "United States of America" form an arc around the upper portion of the reverse Design, with $quarter positioned along the lower edge. Both inscriptions rendered in bold, clear lettering that maintains excellent legibility even on heavily worn specimens. The overall composition balance of the 1970 for $quarter design demonstrates the sophistication of American mint artistry, with each element carefully positioned to create visual harmony, while maintaining the symbolic integrity that makes American coinage instantly recognizable worldwide. The strike quality of 1970 for $quarter varies considerably, depending on the specific mint of origin, die condition at the time of striking, and the precise timing within the production run when individual coins were manufactured. Philadelphia mint examples generally exhibit excellent detail definition, due to the facility's experienced workforce and well-maintained equipment, with sharp relief on both Washington's portrait and the heraldic eagle that showcases the full artistic intent of the original design. Denver mint quarters from 1974 demonstrate similarly high production standards, with the distinctive D mint mark clearly visible on the reverse design, near the eagle's right talon, positioned where it can be easily identified by collectors while not interfering with the overall aesthetic composition of the coin. The mint mark location on 1970 for $quarter represents a continuation of the positioning established during the silver era, providing consistency for collectors who had learned to examine this specific area when identifying and cataloging their specimens. The copper-nickel-clad composition of 1970 for $quarter consists of a pure copper core, comprising approximately 91.67% of the coin's total weight, sandwiched between outer layers of copper-nickel alloy containing 75% copper and 25% nickel that together make up the remaining 8.33% of the coin's mass. This sophisticated metallurgical composition provides the silvery appearance that consumers expect from $quarter while offering superior wear characteristics and corrosion resistance compared to earlier experimental compositions tested during the transition years immediately following 1965. The bonding between the copper core and copper-nickel outer layers requires precise temperature control, pressure application, and timing during the manufacturing process, resulting in a homogeneous plank that can be struck with the same confidence and precision as traditional single alloy coins. The color characteristics of 1970 for $quarter range from brilliant white, with subtle blue overtones on uncirculated specimens, to various shades of gray, brown, and golden toning that develop naturally over time as the copper-nickel surface interacts with environmental factors including humidity, temperature fluctuations, and chemical exposure from handling and storage. Collectors particularly prize 1970 for quarters that have developed attractive rainbow toning or consistent golden coloration that enhances rather than detracts from the underlying design details, as these natural patina variations can significantly increase collector appeal and market value. The grading standards for 1970 for $quarter follow the universal Sheldon 70-point scale, established by Dr. William Sheldon and refined by Professional Grading Services, including Professional Coin Grading Service and Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, with condition assessments ranging from poor 1 for heavily damaged specimens to mint state 70 for theoretically perfect coins that exhibit no post-production contact marks or imperfections. Very good condition 1970 for quarters show moderate to heavy wear, with major design elements still clearly visible but lacking fine detail in areas such as Washington's hair texture and the eagle's feather definition, while fine condition examples retain most major design elements with moderate wear. That begins to affect the clarity of inscriptions and design details. Extremely fine 1970 for quarters exhibit light wear limited primarily to the highest relief areas, with most design details remaining sharp and clear, making these coins particularly attractive to collectors who appreciate the balance between affordability and visual appeal. Uncirculated examples of 1970 for $quarter command premium prices due to their preservation of original mint luster and complete design detail. with mint state grades subdivided into numerical categories that reflect the degree of contact, marks, and surface preservation achieved during the minting and initial handling processes. The rarity factors and collector demand dynamics surrounding 1970 for quarter dollars create a fascinating study in numismatic market forces that demonstrates how seemingly common coins can achieve significant value based on condition preservation, rare varieties, and the evolving preferences of collecting communities worldwide. The original mintage figures for 1970 for quarter dollars reveal production numbers that initially suggest abundant availability, with Philadelphia striking 801,456, 0 quarters without mint marks, and Denver contributing an additional 353,160,020 pieces bearing the D mint mark designation. However, these impressive production totals mask the true scarcity story that unfolds when examining survival rates across different condition categories, particularly for specimens that have avoided the heavy circulation wear that affects the vast majority of coins produced for commerce during this period. The overwhelming majority of 1970 for quarters entered immediate circulation and remained in active commercial use for decades, experiencing the constant handling, mechanical stress, and environmental exposure that inevitably degrades coin surfaces and reduces collector desirability. Conservative estimates suggest that fewer than 1% of the original mintage survives in genuinely uncirculated condition, creating a stark contrast between total production figures and the actual availability of high-quality specimens that meet modern collector standards. This scarcity becomes even more pronounced when considering mint state examples that grade MS65 or higher, representing coins that have not only avoided circulation wear, but also exhibit superior strike quality and minimal post-production contact, marks that could detract from their aesthetic appeal. The collector demand for 1970 for quarter dollars has evolved significantly over the 5 decades since their initial production, driven by multiple factors including the growing recognition of post-silver coinage as legitimate collectibles, the increasing sophistication of condition-sensitive collecting approaches, and the expanding population of numismatists who appreciate the historical significance of 1970s American coinage. Modern collectors actively seek 1970 for quarters for multiple collecting strategies, including date and mint mark type sets. Condition-based collections focused on achieving the highest possible grades, and specialized accumulations targeting specific die varieties or error coins that command premium prices in today's active marketplace. The completion of comprehensive Washington quarter collections requires high-quality examples of 1970 for Philadelphia and Denver mint issues, creating consistent baseline demand that supports stable market values and provides liquidity for collectors who decide to sell their specimens. Professional grading services have played a crucial role in establishing reliable condition standards for 1970 for quarter dollars, with certified examples bringing premium prices that reflect buyer confidence in accurate condition assessment and authentication. The population reports published by major grading services reveal interesting patterns in survival rates across different grade levels, with the majority of submitted 1970 for quarters grading in the MS60 through MS6 for range. While truly exceptional, MS65 and higher examples remain relatively scarce and command proportionally higher market values. The auction market for high-grade 1970 for quarter dollars demonstrates strong collector interest, with certified MS66 examples regularly selling for multiples of their face value. Despite their relatively recent production date, registry set collecting has emerged as a significant market force affecting 1970 for quarter dollar values, as collectors compete to assemble the highest grading complete sets of Washington quarters, creating intense demand for the finest available examples of each date and mint mark combination. The psychological aspects of collecting post-silver era quarters Like the 1974 issues reflect changing attitudes toward modern coinage, with collectors increasingly recognizing that age alone does not determine collectability and that condition, preservation and market demand are often more important factors in determining long-term investment potential. Comparison studies with other Washington quarter dates from the 1970s reveal that 1974 issues occupy a middle position in terms of both mintage figures and collector premiums, making them accessible entry points for beginning collectors while still offering upside potential for condition-conscious buyers who can identify superior examples. The international collector market for American quarters includes significant demand from overseas buyers who appreciate the artistry and historical significance of United States coinage, adding an additional layer of market support that can influence pricing trends for attractive 1974 quarter-dollar specimens. Era coin collecting represents a specialized segment of the numismatic market, where 1974 quarter dollars can achieve exceptional values when they exhibit minting mistakes, die varieties, or other production anomalies that appeal to collectors who focus on the fascinating mistakes and variations that occasionally occur during the coin production process. The market timing considerations for 1974 quarter dollar collecting reflect broader trends in the numismatic marketplace, including the cyclical nature of collector interest, generational changes in collecting preferences, and the ongoing evolution of grading standards and market infrastructure that affects how these coins are bought, sold, and valued. The identification process and collecting strategies for 1974 quarter dollars require a systematic approach that combines visual examination techniques, historical knowledge, and market awareness to successfully locate, authenticate, and value these increasingly sought-after coins in today's competitive collecting environment. Proper identification begins with examining the coin's obverse design to confirm the presence of Washington's profile, the Liberty inscription, the "In God We Trust" motto, and most importantly the 1974 date that clearly establishes the coin's production year and places it within the proper historical context for valuation purposes. The mint mark identification process for 1974 quarter dollars involves careful examination of the reverse design area immediately to the right of the eagle's right talon, where Denver mint coins display a small but clearly visible D mint mark, while Philadelphia mint examples show no mint mark designation. Following traditional practices established for the primary United States mint facility, collectors should use adequate magnification when examining potential mint mark areas, as the small size and sometimes weak strike of mint marks can make identification challenging, particularly on circulated examples, where wear may have affected the clarity of these crucial identifying features. The authentication process for 1974 quarter dollars involves verifying the correct design elements, dimensions, weight, and surface characteristics that distinguish genuine United States mint products from contemporary, counterfeits, or later reproductions that might attempt to exploit collector interest in these coins. Genuine 1974 quarters exhibit the distinctive copper-nickel clad edge appearance when viewed from the side, showing the copper core sandwiched between the silvery copper-nickel outer layers, a characteristic that counterfeiters often struggle to replicate convincingly. The weight verification process requires a precise scale, capable of measuring to at least 1/10 of a gram, with authentic 1974 quarter dollars weighing exactly 5.67 grams when in complete, undamaged condition, providing a reliable authentication benchmark that collectors can use to verify genuineness. Condition assessment for 1974 quarter dollars demands careful attention to wear patterns, surface preservation, luster retention, and contact mark evaluation using standardized grading criteria that have been refined through decades of professional numismatic practice and market experience. The preservation strategies for 1974 quarter dollars focus on preventing environmental damage, minimizing handling-related contact marks, and maintaining the original surface characteristics that determine collector appeal and market value over time. Proper storage requires acid-free holders, controlled temperature and humidity conditions, and protection from exposure to chemicals, oils, and other contaminants that can cause discoloration or surface deterioration that reduces both aesthetic appeal and market value. The cleaning controversy surrounding 1970 for $2 emphasizes the critical importance of avoiding any attempt to artificially enhance or restore coin surfaces, as even well-intentioned cleaning efforts typically result in microscopic surface damage that professional graders can detect and that significantly reduces collector value. Professional grading represents the gold standard for 1970 for $2 authentication and condition certification, with services like Professional Coin Grading Service and Numismatic Guarantee Corporation providing tamper-evident holders and detailed condition reports that increase buyer confidence and market liquidity. The submission process for professional grading requires careful packaging, appropriate service level selection, and realistic expectations about grading outcomes, with collectors learning that even coins that appear exceptional to untrained eyes may receive lower grades than anticipated due to subtle imperfections that affect professional assessments. The market research phase of 1970 for $2 collecting involves monitoring current auction results, dealer asking prices, and private sale transactions to develop an understanding of fair market values across different condition levels and to identify opportunities for advantageous purchases. Online resources including auction databases, dealer inventories, and collector forums provide valuable information about current market trends, recent sales results, and emerging opportunities in the 1970 for $2 market segment. The timing strategies for 1970 for $2 acquisitions consider seasonal market patterns, economic conditions affecting discretionary spending on collectibles, and personal financial circumstances that determine appropriate investment levels for building meaningful collections. The building approach for comprehensive 1970 for $2 collections can follow multiple strategies including date and mint mark completion, grade-focused upgrading, error and variety specialization, or investment-oriented accumulation of the highest quality examples available within budget constraints. The networking aspects of 1970 for $2 collecting benefit from participation in coin clubs, numismatic societies, online collecting communities, and dealer relationships that provide access to better specimens, market information, and educational opportunities that enhance collecting success. The documentation practices for serious 1970 for $2 collectors include maintaining detailed acquisition records, condition photographs, provenance information, and market value, tracking that supports insurance needs, estate planning, and eventual disposition decisions. The exit strategy considerations for 1970 for $2 collecting recognize that successful collectors must eventually plan for selling or transferring their collections, making it important to understand the various market channels available for disposing of coins, including auction houses, coin shows, online platforms, and direct dealer sales. Stay tuned because this is one coin that collectors are chasing with serious passion and big money, and when you discover a high-grade 1974 $2 in your collection, let's just say it's way more than 25 cents. You could be sitting on a coin worth hundreds of dollars or even more depending on condition and mint mark. And these coins are not just historical artifacts but valuable assets that represent one of the most accessible entry points into serious numismatic investing. In today's active coin market, collectors are willing to pay premium prices for exceptional examples of 1970 for $2, particularly those graded MS65 or higher by professional services, making this the perfect time for both new and experienced collectors to examine their holdings and consider strategic acquisitions. If you're a collector or investor, now is the perfect time to check your change. Dig through your drawers and carefully examine any 1970 for quarters you might discover, because you never know what's hiding there waiting to be discovered. Consider yourself lucky if you're holding a 1970 for quarter dollar. That's making headlines in collectors' circles, as these remarkable coins continue to demonstrate that modern American coinage offers tremendous opportunities for those who understand the market and appreciate the intersection of history, artistry, and investment potential that defines successful numismatic collecting in today's dynamic marketplace.